it's Michelle Caruana from Play Cafe Academy and Profitable Play. And I have a clip of a guest expert training that I recently did exclusively for my Playmaker Society membership. Now, if you're new here or this is the first guest expert training you've watched on my channel, just know, again, this is a small clip of the full guest expert training that I do every single month inside of my Playmaker Society membership. So if you want this full training plus 3+ years of guest expert trainings, advanced trainings, group coaching calls, templates and resources, and really everything you need to open and operate a profitable play cafe or indoor playground, all of that information about all my programs, including my membership, are linked below this video. And if you have any questions whatsoever about the difference between Play Cafe Academy or Playmaker Society or anything like that, my Instagram is also linked in the description of this video. So feel free to reach out to me with any questions. But I'm really excited for this particular guest expert interview because I speak with Michele Dillinger, who is an expert at one of the most difficult to navigate topics in the small business world right now. And it's a topic that gets brought up every single day inside of my Playmaker Society membership. And that is attracting, hiring, and retaining employees. It's more difficult and more competitive than ever in the hiring landscape right now. So in this guest expert interview, to give you a little sneak peek, we talk about what Gen Z and other entry-level employees are looking for most in jobs right now. So she talks about what to put in a job posting to stand out, what not to put in a job posting that's potentially scaring really high quality employees away. She talks about how to stand out against those big box companies like Amazon, who are paying well above minimum wage and who are offering perks that we as small local businesses just can't compete with, at least not on an apples to apples basis. So we talk things like sign-on bonus, again, that higher than average wage. We talk about remote work opportunities, again, things that we just can't realistically offer our team. So she gives some really inventive and some really creative and practical ways to, again, set yourself apart and really help your potential employees understand why you would actually be or potentially be a better fit. And again, she gives some really inventive ways to incentivize these employees to apply and accept positions at your business and also how to keep them happy. So we talk about what red flags to look for in employees, how to know when somebody is about to quit or when somebody is feeling unhappy, and that's kind of, seeping into all of the other team members. We talk about employee reviews and how and when we should be doing them and what questions to ask and what not to ask and some really dangerous pitfalls to avoid. She talks about the legalities of offering one employee a different compensation plan than another employee. And we really just get into so many of these, hypothetical situations. I'm putting hypothetical in air quotes because these are actually all real scenarios that either I've struggled with or that I've faced in my business or that my Playmaker Society members are currently facing. So I came prepared with a list of questions, a list of scenarios, and Michele really helps us navigate these murky waters that can be being a manager and leading a team. Because something that I hear, like I said, time and time again inside of my membership is that one of the most shocking things to them about this industry is just how much time and energy they spend just on the people part. So attracting, hiring, and retaining their employees. It's very difficult. And like I said, right now, it seems like it's more difficult than ever, almost impossible to stand out against some of these other big box stores in the hiring landscape. So again, I'm so excited to share this clip of the guest expert interview that I did with Michele Dillinger. If you have any questions, feel free to message me on Instagram. I also linked Michele's website and Michele's Instagram in the video description. And Michele also has a free guide that she's sharing with all of my YouTube subscribers, all about how to attract, hire, and retain your employees. So feel free to, again, head to the video description and download that free resource. And again, we hope to welcome you inside Play Cafe Academy and Playmaker Society, where this and many, many, many other trainings are waiting for you. right now. All right, let's hear from Michelle. And I wanted to kind of start this conversation with probably the most common question that I hear from my members, because a lot of us owning local retail businesses, we work a lot with people who are in a younger generation than us. So, the hot button question that everyone wants to know right now is, what does Gen Z value most in a job? How can we attract them and things like that? So, you just want to kind of get started there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic question. And like you said, really applicable for today's world. I remember a few years ago, I believe it was after one of the midterm elections, I saw a great meme online that said something to the effect of, do you think we should be electing more millennials to Congress? And the subtext on the meme was, given my understanding of linear time, I'm not sure what the alternative is. And I loved that because, we have these conversations about should we or should we not hire these types of employees or target them in our recruitment efforts. And truly, we have no option. Gen Z is our future. And so it's so vitally important to know what they value. And there are things that overlap with the millennial and even older generations. Things like work-life balance, things like financial security, flexibility is one that Gen Z really, really values. And I would say that the millennial generation really kicked off the desire for flexibility, but Gen Z now entering the workforce around this time of COVID and having these work from home experiences, flexibility is really important to them. But I want to give you the two things that I feel are most important for Gen Z. And the first one is this idea of personhood. Ever since the inception of the Industrial Revolution, we have been on this track to considering employees as people as opposed to products. Back in the day, a company would send 40 miners into a coal mine and 38 would come up, and the leadership of that company would just send in the next two in line. People really weren't valued for who they are as individuals. And every generation after that has really started slowly to embrace that idea of personhood. We had unionization, we have child labor laws now, but Gen Z is at the peak of this. They really not only want to be recognized as people and as individuals outside of their jobs, they expect to be recognized as people outside of their jobs. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing for employers. Let me give you an example of a Gen Z. Let's call him Jack. So Jack has just graduated from high school. Maybe you own an ice cream shop and you have hired Jack to come in and scoop ice cream over the summer. And you could just see Jack as an employee who you need to work behind the counter for an 8-hour shift. Or you could get to know Jack as a person, and you as an employer could find things out about Jack. Like, let's say Jack is really passionate about graphic design, and in his spare time, he's applying to graphic design programs. Well, you as the employer can not only create loyalty within your employee base, within Jack himself, by talking to him about these hopes and dreams of his, but you can also use that to your advantage as a small business owner. We're always trying to cut costs. We're always trying to make sure that we are staying in the black. Maybe Jack has a strength like graphic design. Maybe you can use him to design your next event flyer or refresh your company logo. And this has this dual benefit of giving this Gen Z employee something that he's really passionate about and that recognition that he's looking for as a person. And it also gives you as a small business owner this benefit that you may not have even known you were getting when you hired this Gen Z employee. So that's the first thing I think that's really, really important for small business owners to recognize in their Gen Z employee pool is this idea and value in personhood. And the second thing is their focus on values. So Gen Z is so social justice driven. They're politically involved. They know all the information they could possibly know about hot button topics. They are so connected and active in today's world. And that's not to say that you need an entire page on your website where you list out all the hot button topics and your company's particular stance on that. But let's say you're a business owner who owns a small coffee shop and you personally really believe in conservation and you have a compostable coffee cup that you serve your customers with. Well, maybe you put that in your job description. Maybe you use that as a way to entice Gen Z employees. They see that you have this value and that you are also active within the sort of broader world of today. And that's really appealing to Gen Z employees.
I love that. And it also speaks to a dual benefit because not only are you attracting people who are passionate about the same issues, but it's going to be great for the owner because again, the shared value. So it's not just
Exactly.
good for the employee, it's also great for the employer to have that shared value. So I love that.
Absolutely.
So something that you mentioned a few minutes ago, I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper on. So you mentioned mentioning things in job descriptions such as
Mhm.
your maybe values or something like that. What are some other things that we might want to be including in job postings and things like that to attract quality Gen Z employees? Because I think a lot of owners will just jot down a couple of things without really thinking about it, throw it up on Indeed or on Facebook and hear
Mhm.
crickets, and they're not really sure what the problem is. Or maybe they're just attracting employees that aren't a great fit. So what are some other things that we might want to include on those job postings to make sure we actually get applicants that are a good fit?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. I'm so glad you asked that because I think there really has to be a shift in understanding about the role of the job description. Even as recently as a decade ago, job descriptions were seen as this, I have this job and you want this job, and I'm going to list out these 10 things that the person I hire is going to be responsible for. And there has been a huge transformation in mindset recently where all of a sudden it's not the employer who's putting together the job description who has something that all of these people are competing for. All of a sudden, you are the product. Your job is the product. And that job description is your marketing tool for that product. You have all of these employees out here who you want to apply for your job. And you need to use that job description as a marketing tool to try to attract the employees that you want to purchase your job or apply for your job. And so the types of things that you really want to emphasize are things that you know are important to your ideal employee. So just like we think about marketing to our target audience, you have to think about who is your ideal employee. Do you want to hire somebody who is only going to need to work part-time, come in the evenings? You need a high school student after school to scoop ice cream. Well, the things that they desire are going to be completely different than if you need to hire an accountant to work full-time to keep your books in order, or somebody to do your taxes every year. And so you need to really first think about who you're trying to attract. And again, use that job description as a marketing tool. So the answer to what you put in the job description is really going to be dependent on the type of employer you're trying to attract. But let me talk a little bit about some of the things that you could put into a job description. I know a lot of small business owners really struggle with salary because, you don't always have the financial ability to have a really competitive salary or even to offer salaries much above minimum wage. Well, there are things you can put in that job description to attract high quality talent without having to max out your salary budget. So, for example, something like paid educational opportunities. And this could be educational reimbursement or something like an educational stipend, which is actually my personal preference because I think it gives the employee more freedom. So, let's talk about an educational stipend. You could either reimburse an individual a certain amount of money for taking a course that is specific to your job. Or you could say, listen, I'm going to give you $1,000 a year, which is much less than you would be paying if you increased their salary. But I'm going to give you $1,000 a year to use towards any kind of professional or educational development that you choose. And so maybe somebody in your ice cream parlor is an artist on the side and they want to take art classes at night, and you have just enabled them to do that. And if you put that in your job description, you have already enticed an employee that may have otherwise said, I don't want to work in an ice cream parlor. I'm an artist. That's not my goal. So educational stipends and reimbursement are great things to put in your job description and in your job posting. Things like remote and hybrid work, though I know a lot of brick and mortar stores aren't going to have that option. Transportation and commuter stipends are also really helpful. So particularly with Gen Z, they're not always going to have transportation of their own. A lot of them are living in big cities. They're going to be taking public transportation. And so giving them some kind of transportation stipend to help them get into work every day can be really appealing. And if you're not in an area where mass transit is readily available, you could give them a $50 a month gas card. Gas is astronomically expensive right now, as we all know. $50 a month probably isn't even going to fill up their car. But it's also not going to be a huge financial hardship on a small business owner. And it's the kind of thing you can offer an employee that, again, speaks to that personhood. I recognize that you're spending money just to get into work, and I'm going to offer this to you to try to just slightly lessen that burden on you as an individual. And that is highly appealing to Gen Z employees.
I love that. And I was just like furiously trying to find this other example that I heard, and I actually found it. So very similar to the educational stipend, I was listening to a podcast recently, and it was actually Ashley Flowers from the Crime Junkie podcast. She was on Amy Porterfield's podcast, and she said something really interesting about how she hires people and something that she uses to incentivize people to apply. And she does something similar to that educational stipend, but she gives her employees, she didn't give like a dollar amount, but she said she gives every employee a set amount to donate to charitable causes each year.
Love that.
So
Love
it kind
that.
of to the personhood and the values both.
Exactly.
So I love that idea too. So, and something that I love that she does is she also recognizes her employees when they choose their donation. So on all of her social media platforms, she introduces the employee, she shares the cause that employee chose to donate to, and she allows them to kind of use their own voice on their social platform to share why they chose that organization, how they're passionate about that particular issue, and also shares a link for other people if they kind of want to also donate. So I love both the educational stipend idea and this idea of a set donation amount.
That is such a great example. Similar to that, a paid volunteer day off. I've worked with a couple of companies that offer one day a quarter where the entire company is closed, and it's a work day, not a weekend. All the employees get paid, but it's an opportunity for that employee to go volunteer at their organization of choice. And I love that idea.
All right, that wraps up this clip of the guest expert training that I did for my Playmakers Society members with Michele Dillinger. Again, all of the information about Michele, her Instagram, her website, her free guide about retaining your employees, all of that is linked in the video description, as is all of the information about how you can become a Play Cafe Academy and Playmakers Society member today. We would love to welcome you. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you never miss a profitable play tip. All right, thank you guys so much for listening. Have a great day. I will see you guys next week.